back in 2000 and 2002, that bill ended up being stripped down, ruled too vague, and unconstitutional. But I'm so grateful to all of you because now we have a possibility to pass this very important legislation today. We must all stand united against targeted violence and bigotry. Victims need protection against any attack motivated by hatred due to bias or prejudice. So House Bill 426 is a measure approached at doing all of the things that we need to do to treat this injustice. It's time that Georgia rise up and show that we will not stand for crimes done out of hate. Yes, we cannot legislate love, but we can put stronger penalties in place that may deter those who are committing these crimes from doing it. So I take my seat and I'm reminded of Nina Simone, who sung about strange fruit, and that was, of course, people being lynched. They're still being lynched. Racism, bigotry, hatred still exist. Let's do something in the state of Georgia to try to curb that. God bless you all. God bless the great state of Georgia. And I yield the will.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 45th to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Senate. I rise, and I have to apologize if I seem a little bit nervous, because I am very nervous. I guess you'd call it the proverbial cat on a hot tin roof. I feel like I'm on a hot tin roof. And I think my trepidation is because it's not about the bill. It's about the method to the madness of the bill. And I feel really bad about that. I feel real bad about it. But I want to start out, and I don't know how many minutes I have, but I hope I get enough minutes. I want to talk about the circle of life. And I think it's very apropos that I get up here and I start talking about a hate crimes bill. Because my life as an elected official started out with hate crimes. And a lot of y'all ask me, Renee, why are you so tough? Why is it you put your armor on? Why is it you are like a turtle with a hard shell on top of you, and you have nerves of steel, and you will absolutely do anything? But let me tell you about the journey in that circle of life. I've walked a long ways in 35 years of being elected. 35 years. I've been elected 32 years, but it took a while to get there to be elected. When I was in my young 30s, I converted from Catholicism to Judaism. I never knew when I converted the joy, but I also never knew the discrimination that I would feel the rest of my life because of my faith and my religion. I didn't know how tough you had to be. But I also knew that God chose me for a reason. And it was that reason to walk in that path and to have that toughness. So you know about that body armor I've got, but you don't know what created it. When I first got elected in the city of Loganville, I decided I could change the world, and I was doing it for the children. And I had just converted to Judaism and just moved to Loganville. And I had people literally say to me, I'm going to vote for you because you're really not Jewish, We know you're not Jewish. We know you just got married to a doctor to be able to get rich. You know, I heard every accusation in the world about not being Jewish, or you're really not Jewish, and the justification. And after I became the mayor, I fired the police chief within just a few months. And all mayhem literally broke out. And I found out that Fisher that I would get attacked about was about being Jewish and my religion. And you know, you can survive death threats, and you get death threats, and I'm sure many of the senators in here have had those. But what is worse than death threats? What is worse? Well, I found out what could be worse. The KKK in the 1980s was still very prevalent. And it's not the KKK that you think about when you see the white dunce hats, I call them, and the white robes. They had changed, they had morphed, and they wore camouflage. And they carried weapons, and that was back in the day when everybody had a pickup truck and you had a gun rack and you displayed your rifles and shotguns. And I did that too on my farm. But unfortunately, the KKK demonstrated on my streets in Loganville every single weekend. And it became known that they would be there as a type of intimidation. One of the highlights, or I would say lowlights, was when I received a letter threatening to kidnap my son. My son was only about 5 years old. And in the letter, it was written in a certain color ink, black or blue, I can't remember. But then at the very end, it was signed with what I thought was a teardrop in red, and painted a teardrop in red. And my husband at the time said, "No, Renee, that's not a teardrop. That's a drop of blood." So I wanted to escape. So I got my mother and I got my son, and I went to the airport, and I got on the next plane out of Atlanta because I wanted to run away. And I did run away. I got on the next plane. I bought the next tickets for me, myself, and my mother. And I told you I was nervous. My mother, myself, and my son, and we went to Cincinnati, Ohio. And I stayed up there for several days, and I found out you can't run away from it. You can't run away from discrimination. You can't run away from your fear. Your fear goes with you. And that was probably the first time I put on that body armor. And I went back, and I said, I'm going to be fearless. But you know what? Those people said they were going to be fearless too. Because once a month, every month, I get delivered in my driveway the Thunderbolt newspaper. And I remember getting up at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the morning to run out to the driveway to check and see if that newspaper was there before my child would get up, and happened to see that out there. I had a cross in my front yard. The GBI became involved, the FBI became involved, the Anti-Defamation League became involved. And fortunately, I had a lot of support. But guess who came to my defense the most? The citizens of Loganville. They denounced it. I was elected for 2 more terms. I served as 3 terms of the mayor of the city of Loganville. But I will never, ever forget that experience. And this is before the internet. This is before the fax machines. This is before anything. The New York Times picked up on my story. And Hollywood came knocking and said, we want to make a movie. And I knew then that my destiny was to be strong and to carry on and to be better and stand up for people of the Jewish religion and the Jewish faith, to be strong for them and for everyone else. And for those that are oppressed, I equally could identify with them, because when they told me about their oppression, I could identify with it. And that's why for the 20 years that I've been in here, I've written the laws about victimization, because I understand it, I identify with it, and I want to change it. So let's fast forward. We built a temple in Snellville, Georgia called Temple Beth David. We were the first Jewish temple, I believe, out in the suburbs, out in Gwinnett County. And lo and behold, that same discrimination that I faced, our whole congregation faced. Our temple was defaced with graffiti. Our sign was defaced. We were not wanted to move there. This is in the 1980s. We had to have security. I never knew as a Catholic that you had to have a police officer in a church or a temple or a synagogue. Wouldn't you rather spend that money on buying supplies for Sunday school versus paying for an off-duty police officer? But I found that was a way of life. And guess what? That discrimination, we are standing in the shadow. We are literally standing in the shadow right here of one of the most famous temples in America called The Temple, right down the street on Peachtree Street. And why is it so famous? It's a shame it's so famous. But on October 12th in 1958 is the very famous temple bombing right down the street. So you want to know why Jews are so sensitive? Let's fast forward again. Let's talk about the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a conservative synagogue, October 27th, 2018. 2 years ago. 11 victims when a gunman went in and slayed people who had gone to temple to pray. 11 victims, and many others were injured. Let's fast forward again to Poway, California, exactly 6 months later from the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. Another gunman went in. It's 20 miles north of San Diego. 1 death and 3 injured. So you want to know why we need a hate crimes bill? When you can't walk into a building and pray? When you're gunned down by a madman? And you say that's a thought process? I beg to differ. In the 1990s, I helped start a group called A Gwinnett. And you think of A Gwinnett, and you think that you're helping people, and we were helping people. We were helping the gay community, and it was at the height of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And there was no help in the suburbs. We had Aid Atlanta, but we didn't have anything in the suburbs. And it took a lot of courage. I had a lot of people tell me, Renee, you're going to end your political career because you're helping gay people. But the same reason I wanted to help was the same reason the shoes I had walked on in, that I had been discriminated against. I saw it happening to them. It's one of the most successful nonprofits, not only in Gwinnett County, not only in metropolitan Atlanta, but in the state of Georgia, and it has helped so very many people. So I want to finish out. I want to tell you about the circle of life again. I'm 66 years old. I'm in about the 9 o'clock hour of the 12 o'clock midnight. I realize that. But I ran a congressional campaign this past year, and it was a whole 12 months. And during that campaign, I knew that being Jewish would come up again. And sure enough, I ran up against a guy who advertised himself as a Christian, a doctor, a family man, and a veteran. But that Christian was out there as the number one thing. I was at a parade in Cumming, Georgia. A beautiful parade. It was a Christmas parade. And I had decorated my float, my pickup truck. I had one of my best friends who's a Bangladeshi guy, and he was driving for me, and his family was there, and his son was riding with me, and I had decorated the pickup truck with all my banners, and it was red, white, and blue because I don't celebrate Christmas. And even though I was playing Christmas music on that float and I was handing out Christmas candy, my opponent came up to me, and he had on one of those Christmas sweaters, and one of those tacky Christmas sweaters that they sell at Walmart. I've seen them for sale at Walmart. And he said to me, hey, Renee, you want a sweater? You want a Christmas sweater to put on? Ride in the parade? I've got an extra one for you. You know what memory came in my head? What memory came in my head was when I bent over in the driveway and I picked up that Thunderbolt newspaper. I recalled that discrimination. What he was doing to me was not a hate crime, but it was belittling me because of my religion and my faith. It was trying to intimidate me and make me feel bad. But just as I picked up that Thunderbolt newspaper in my driveway, I knew I was going to persevere. I knew I would not let it harm me. And I knew I would go on in that campaign. And it was a reflection on him. It was not a reflection on me. So it's very apropos that I end my career as an elected official with a bill that means so much to me. And the Jewish people that I represent, you very rarely ever heard me talk about my religion in this body and from this well. But I implore to you, I know the ADL has worked on this bill. I implore to you, if you have any question, if it needs to exist, it definitely needs to exist. And even though I have my trepidation about how this bill has come about and the process it's gone through, I'm willing to overlook that because I know it's needed so badly. And if there is a legacy in this body that you want to leave, it's the same legacy from the 1960s that was left in the state of Georgia. And it's what I said the other day. We are better than this, and we can do better than this. And I want to close out, and I want to thank the Lieutenant Governor, Mr. President, for giving me this time. I want to close out with something I chose, and it's from Chabad. It's Psalm 52. Behold the man who does not place his strength in God and trust his great wealth. He strengthened himself in his wickedness. But I am like a fresh olive tree in the house of God. I have trusted in the kindness of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever and ever when you have done this. And I will hope for your name, for it is good, in the presence of your devoted ones. And I know we have many religions in here, and I know there's a lot of really, really deeply religious people. But I ask you to join me in being a part of that olive tree and the goodness it represents. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the well.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 28th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I remember getting down here in 2017 and meeting a senator from the 39th, and now that he's no longer here, I believe I can say his name, Senator Vincent Fort. And Senator Fort was always known for these outbursts. he would have these outbursts in the chamber and in committee, and you know, and to me just kind of seemed like this guy that had a chip on his shoulder. And I got to know Senator Fort and realized, you know, maybe that wasn't quite the case, but he was doing and being a voice for something he believed in. But I always blew off those outbursts. And then I want to fast forward to the other day, and the senator from the 26th was standing right here, and he said, "You'll never know what it's like to live in this skin." And I'm paraphrasing. And then in typical fashion, from the 39th, we heard another outburst. But this outburst was different. This outburst was different because our world changed overnight. When 2 videos were released, our nation woke up. Our state woke up. And it was different. Senator from the 39th, she said, "No, you will never know. And I won't." But I heard her this time. I felt it this time. People like me are now awake. It's time to listen. But let us not be distracted, because if you believe there's institutional racism, we can't point our fingers at those that are out enforcing the laws that come out of this institution. Those that are out enforcing the policies that come out of the courthouses that each one of us represent. If we want change, it starts here. It starts here. And I believe that change has started. Do not let this bill pacify all that we are hearing, all the voices that we're hearing. Do not let this be the end. This is the beginning. This is the first of many things that we are going to do as a state to improve for the betterment of everybody. Everybody. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 38th to speak to the measure.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues. I hadn't planned to come and say anything, but when I listened to all of the personal talks that were given by the senator from the 35th and 45th and 33rd, you know, all of my colleagues that have spoken, I felt like I should relate a little something about my life. First thing that came to my mind, I used to love to go to the library downtown, which we don't have anymore. We don't have the Macy's downtown anymore. But I used to ride the bus downtown and go to the library and get my books and come back home. This particular Saturday, I went and got on the elevator at Macy's and rode upstairs. I don't know what I was going upstairs for. And when I got off the elevator, I left on the elevator a mother and her small child. And as I got off the elevator, I heard the little girl say, "Now the elevator is clean, Mommy." I said, okay. I'm not gonna say that was my first encounter, but it was a personal encounter. Being the way I grew up, I would be at my dad's office and something would happen down here, and people would call on Saturday, and they cursed. I answer the phone, they cursed me out. because of whatever they were fighting at that time, which was usually something to try to get parity for our community. So I have been acquainted with this for a long time. When we had teacher integration here in Atlanta, early 70s, I got a couple of teachers that came over to my high school, which was Douglas High School, and they obviously didn't want to be there. They, you know, it was a lotto kind of thing, and they got sent there. I had one teacher that got upset because she was sitting in the room knitting, not teaching me English, sitting there knitting. So I went and told Dr. Butts. Okay? I got her best friend the next time. That lady was something else on me. I wrote a paper, which we had to write in the class. I wrote this paper, and on the first page I had the information. At the second page I had information. Third page I had information. Well, I had more information. So I turned back over on the back of the first page, turned on the second page, back of the second page, turned on the back of the third page. Do you know she marked me down because I didn't do what she would consider consecutive pages? But yes, I did have it numbered. That's one time I saw my mother, who is a teacher, go into action. She called the lady and told her, "You never do that." She didn't use those words, never do, but she had a discussion with her about how you treat people. I knew why they were treating me that way. One, yes, because I had gone to the principal, but two, they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to teach us. Then I got to University of Georgia. In the 70s, I had a cousin who went there in the 60s. I can imagine what he endured. He came after Hamp Holmes and Charlene Hanna. I got people that didn't want to give me what I deserved in class as a grade because I was the color that I am. So yes, we have all experienced in some shape, form, or fashion, I would think. So, not all of us, but most of us. We all have, though, in other ways. The majority party has probably faced some of this, just in a different way. So I implore you to, thankfully, this time, because we have worked on this for years. I was here when Senator Ford brought the first hate crime bill. You know, I've been here as we have worked at it for years and years and years, and I am so happy that after all this time, and I've been here, unfortunately, a very long time, or fortunately, I'm not complaining, but I'm glad we have finally gotten together, that the senator from the 48th and the minority party whatever he is, the senator from the 41st. I'm so happy that they worked on it. I'm happy that the lieutenant governor showed leadership and helping people to get together. I know it was a heavy lift. I know it had to be. But I want to thank all of you for doing this. It's important. It's important to all of Georgia. Thank you.
Senator has yielded the well. The chair recognizes the senator from the 46th to close debate.
I want to thank the senator from the 31st for his speech shortly ago, where he had some questions that he needed answered. He brought up part of my comments that I forgot. I didn't really expect this to come up so early and hadn't completely got all my thoughts together before I spoke, but he mentioned Jesus' words, to love thy neighbor as thyself. What he basically said was, that sums up all the law of all the prophets. in that one sentence. And I can feel it in this building today, where we are all coming together to express that that's what we endorse, rather than this hateful behavior and actions. Love hearing all the heartfelt testimony, basically, and descriptions of things that have happened to many of the members in this body. And I hope that our children, our next generation, will experience less of that than we have endured or been a part of or sat silently by and allowed it to happen. I sat back there in my little corner. Love the back of the chamber, and that's my pole. Some of them say that I lean against because I'm too fidgety to be sitting in my seat for too long. And I got to just thinking, you know, why did God make us all so different? Why did he create different races, different languages, different national origin, different sexes, different sexual orientation? Don't we all believe that God created all of us? And then through his son told us, love each other, even though you're different. This is an opportunity to demonstrate that. And for the senator from the 31st that asked about the records being kept for people, these records are not subject to public disclosure. Do not worry about reputations being ruined. But also he asked a question, where else in the law do they keep a record where somebody's arrested and not convicted? That's in the GCIC criminal report, the rap sheet, so to speak. An arrest, when you're booked in a jail, becomes a public record, and it goes on the Crime Information Center's report. And it also shows the disposition of that crime, if you're acquitted or you're convicted. But only if you're arrested does that fact become public knowledge, and I do not believe that this reporting requirement reports simple investigations. I think there must be a conclusion that a crime was committed before these are reported. I certainly hope it's that way, and I believe that's the intent of it. If it's not, that's the type of thing that I believe that we can straighten out in a conference committee. Now, I'm asking the House to take action. Remember, we have several problems we're addressing. One is to support our law enforcement, and it is to protect that community from hate crimes as well. We need to make that statement of principle of where we stand, and we ask you to do that now. If you want this bill to pass, I can tell you there are many members in this body that want to be guaranteed or sure that the House will support law enforcement like the Senate does. And then let's move to phase 2, and let's protect each other from our citizens. And then let's move to phase 3 and study how best to regulate police practices and procedures to be fair to everybody. Mr. President, thank you for the honor of selecting me to carry this very important historic legislation. And I thank you to the people of Georgia, the people of the 46th District, for putting me here to speak for you and to be able to be a part of this and many other important decisions. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the will.
The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. The question is on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor of the bill will vote yea, opposed nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. As a reminder, the 60-second rule has been waived. Have all senators voted? All right, we got some more folks to vote. Have all senators voted? The hallway's clear. Mr. Secretary, please lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 47, the nays are 6. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. I want to take a moment, a personal privilege, to thank many of you in this room. I want to personally thank Chairman Calzert, Minority Whip Jones. I will never forget the absolute value of bipartisan teamwork to tackle tough issues as long as I serve as your Lieutenant Governor. Thank you very much. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 833?
House Bill 833 by Representative Stevens of the 164th and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Title 52 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to waters of the state, ports, and watercraft so as to authorize the department to promulgate rules and regulations regarding long-term anchoring and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Natural Resources and the Environment recommends this bill do pass. Senator Harper of the 7th District, Chair.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 1st to speak to House Bill 833.
Thank you, Mr. President. Presenting House Bill 833, which is a bill that is important for my particular area, having to be on the coast and certainly in any areas of lakes in this great state of Georgia. This has to do with anchoring boats overnight. It breaks it down into two categories. One is a 14-day category, and one is longer than 14 days. As you could imagine, overnight would be less than the 14 days. You're not allowed to be within so many feet within a marina or a dock, and then certainly in the oyster beds, which is a community which we're trying to encourage here on our coast. For those who are longer than 14 days, it is you do have to get a permit, and you do have to be certainly farther from the distance relating to docks or marinas, or certainly from oyster beds, and that's actually a mile. So that is certainly very appropriate. You still have to meet the criteria relating to disposal of your waste, and that is federally guided, and it is through the Coast Guard. So without further ado, I ask for your favorable consideration of this boat anchoring bill, House Bill 833. Thank you.
You have no questions. Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 833? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none. The main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill? All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? Got a couple more walking to their machines. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 48, the nays are 1. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 993?
House Bill 993 by Representative Dempsey of the 13th and others, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 10 of Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to vital records so as to provide for vital record reports and data from the state registrar relating to child abuse reports and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Judiciary recommends this bill do pass. By substitute, Senator Stone of the 23rd District Chair. The Senate Judiciary Committee offers the following substitute to House Bill 993, a bill to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 11 of Title 15 of Article 4 of Chapter 9 of Title 19, Chapter 10 of Title 31, and Chapter 5 of Title 49 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated, relating to the Juvenile Code, power of attorney for child care, vital records, and programs and protection for children and youth, respectively, so as to provide for vital record reports and data from the state registrar relating to child abuse reports and for other purposes. Mr. President, that completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 23rd to speak to House Bill 993.
House Bill 993 does one thing primarily. It repeals the provision that set up the Child Protective Services Information System, also known as Child Abuse Registry. Until 1998, when it was struck down as unconstitutional by the Georgia Supreme Court, the General Assembly resurrected the registry in 2016, but it suffered persistent constitutional and operational deficiencies that undermine the goals of the child welfare system. So DFACS has brought us this bill. In support of it, the registry does not enhance the state efforts to protect children. In how it operates, the state can no longer measure and track child safety using the most common and familiar measure because of the chilling effect on the substantiation of child abuse reports. The very month that the registry took effect, July 2016, substantiations in Georgia dropped by more than 50% as caseworkers did not wish to expose individuals to disproportionately harsh consequences that may follow a determination of parental neglect. Administrative law judges overturned substantiation decisions at a rate of 31% in appeals, even in cases where juvenile court has found the child to be dependent based on a higher legal standard. The registry fails in its design. The people found to have committed the most severe kinds of child abuse, those facing criminal prosecution, are not named in the registry until after the criminal trial is concluded, which could take months or years so that prosecutions are not jeopardized. The administrative review process often results in re-traumatizing child survivors of abuse called to testify in front of, and in some cases be cross-examined by their abusers. And defense attorneys have begun using these administrative processes as discovery tools, not the intent of the law. The child registry is duplicative with other record databases. Federal law does require state child welfare agencies to record child abuse and neglect. In Georgia, we have an automated case management system known as SHINES. but federal law does not require the state to operate this registry. The registry causes other problems. Being named on the registry carries significant consequences, disqualifying individuals for certain kinds of employment, as well as preventing them from becoming foster or adoptive parents. Many teachers and other individuals who provide essential services for children continue to be terminated or disqualified for employment based on minor offenses because the registry laws do not distinguish individuals based on severity of the act. Parents and caregivers found to have committed even minor offenses who pose no risk of future harm to children must also be named as child abusers and face these severe consequences. Due to court challenges since the inception of the registry and concerns expressed by child welfare system stakeholders, the registry laws were revised significantly in 2019. Still, all stakeholders support repeal. That includes DFACs, the judges that deal with our juvenile courts, prosecuting attorneys, counsel. All these groups are generally supported in doing away with this. And it contributes to needless expense. It's estimated that by doing away with the registry and the administrative appeals that go along with it, the state will save $1.5 million a year. Mr. President, I urge support of House Bill 993 and we'll be happy to answer questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you very much.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 993? The chair sees none. The question is on the adoption of the committee substitute. Is there objection to adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none, and the committee substitute is adopted. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none, the report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill by substitute. All those in favor will vote yea, opposed nay. The secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? We've got a couple more coming. Have all senators voted? Got a thumbs up from the hallway. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 52, the nays are 0. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed by substitute. For what purpose does the senator from the 46th rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. I am very pleased to announce that the House has passed. House Bill 838, as we had hoped and expected, and I now move to transfer or transmit House Bill 426 immediately to the House for further action.
Senator from the 46 has asked for unanimous consent that the Senate immediately transmit House Bill 426 to the House. Is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is so. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the caption of House Bill 758?
House Bill 758 by Representative Powell, the 32nd, and others. A bill to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 3 of Chapter 1 of Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Georgia Motor Carrier Act of 2012 so as to prohibit the consideration of the deployment of motor carrier safety improvements in determining an individual's employment status with a motor carrier and for other purposes. Mr. President, the Senate Committee on Insurance and Labor recommends that this bill do pass. Senator Jones of the 25th District, Chair. That completes the order.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th to speak to House Bill 758. Chair recognizes the senator from the 29th. He's just gathering his notes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I apologize. I was still caught up in the awe of the incredible work done by this chamber so far today. Colleagues, House Bill 758 is just a small piece of legislation that protects the independent truck driver. And many times when they contract with larger companies, these larger companies require them to take certain safety classes and other courses to ensure that they're moving their products across the state in a safe manner. And all this does is prevent those independent contractors from being classified as employees of the larger company. It protects the independent truck drivers here in Georgia, and I would greatly appreciate your support on this legislation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Senator, you have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the well.
Does any other senator wish to speak for or against House Bill 758? The chair sees none. Is there objection to agreeing to the report of the committee which is favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there objection to the main question being ordered? Chair hears none, and the main question is ordered. Questions on the passage of the bill. All those in favor will vote yea. Opposed, nay. The Secretary will unlock the machine. Have all senators voted? Have all senators voted? I'm getting a thumbs up from the hallway. Mr. Secretary, please close the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas are 34, the nays are 14. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. All right, we're going to stand at ease for 1 hour. There's a couple of committees that are going to want to meet, get with your chairs. Do any chairs have any announcements they want to make about their committee meetings? Chair recognizes the senator from the 14th, or you can recognize from your seat.
Thank you, sir. We are going to hold a very, very quick Veterans Homeland Security meeting in the MES immediately, just to take up a resolution.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 10th for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. The DeKalb Senate delegation would have a brief meeting downstairs, room 125, and lunch is served.
Chair recognizes the senator from the 9th for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll have an Education and Youth Committee meeting, hopefully brief, in 307, I assume. Yes.
Senate will stand in recess. The plan is to be back in 1 hour. Thank you.